Hello and welcome. This is Victor Uniform to Alpha India Victor, and my handle is Abid, that goes as Alpha Bravo India Delta. Well, I got myself a handy walkie-talkie, the Baofeng UV-5R, one of the most commonly found handies in every ham shack. In my previous video, I did the unboxing of this handy, and for those of you who haven't seen it, I have posted the link in the description below. So now that we have the unit in hand, the next step would be to use it. In my view though, it would be prudent to take a look at the safety aspects involving the use of a walkie-talkie. Whichever make and model that you have, the safety aspects are more or less the same. Many of the things which I may tell you now are found in the user manual that comes with the handy in the box. In fact, quite a lot of stuff is quite intuitive and a no-brainer actually. Senior hams may actually find it too simple for their taste. But I would advise every new ham to take a look at the safety related information in the booklet which comes along with your walkie-talkie. So typically for any handy that you have, there are two components which play a big role when it comes to operating safely. One is the battery and the other is the antenna. So let's take a look at the battery first and see what are the things related to it which we should take care. Well, first of all, we have to keep in mind that a battery is a device which stores energy in the form of electrical energy. So anything and everything that you have learned in your younger days about safe handling of electricity applies here as well. First and foremost is that do not let your battery get wet. In fact, if you even find a layer of moisture on top of the battery, it is best to dry wipe it with a cloth. Now, make sure that the cloth that you use is not a synthetic cloth. It should be a cotton cloth. Using a synthetic cloth may generate static, and that is not a thing that you want when you're handling batteries. That's a thing you can totally avoid. That's one of the first things that I can think of. Secondly, every battery has an operating temperature range, between this temperature to that temperature. So the Baofeng UV-5R battery which comes in the kit, the manual mentions that the operating temperature range is between 5 degrees to 40 degrees Celsius. Now what does it mean? It means that if the temperature goes below 5 degrees, then the battery does not effectively work. There is not much energy left in it, obviously. Same as a human being, if you feel too cold, you don't have much energy to move around. Similarly, if it gets too hot, then again you will find that the energy in it somehow wants to get out. And that is when you will find that the battery leaks or sometimes it implodes. And those are things which you definitely want to avoid. So bear in mind this operating range. But if you are planning to store your battery for a long period of time, and it's going to be lying unused, then it is a good idea to keep it in a dry and cool place so that it can discharge slowly and gradually. The other thing that you need to know is every battery needs to be charged every now and then. Now there are charging points on the battery, the contact points, which can get worn down over the years. But you also need to keep in mind that the contact should be clean. There should not be any dust accumulation or any oil accumulation of some sort, depending on where you are using it. Now these can either act as an insulation or it can act as a very good conductor. And either way, it's no good for the battery because you can have instances of overheating or sparking happening across the contacts, and that's not a very safe way to operate. Now remember this, that when you get a new battery in your box, it's usually carrying some residual charge. The manual will probably suggest that you have to go through a few cycles of charging and discharging in order to get the battery to be charged to its optimal best. In fact, the Baofeng manual suggests that you go through 3 cycles of charging, discharging, and then you get to the optimum best charging capacity of the battery. Now, one last thing which I would like to point out regarding these batteries is that when you fix the battery in the transreceiver, you will find that it has to be slid into the casing and latched in place. So if you see here, if you look closely, you will find a latch which can be pressed, and that kind of operates this small tongue inside. And also, if you look closely on the side here as well as here, you will find 2 grooves which act like guide rails for the battery to be slid in place, like so. So I have the battery here, and so I place it here and I simply push it in. So once I push it in, you can hear a click when the latch locks on. Like, I'll release it now, and it comes out very neatly. If I push it in, there you go, there's the click, and that tells you that the battery is firmly locked in place. And that is how it should be, because you want the contacts of the battery aligning. You see the contacts on top here? They should align with the contacts inside the transceiver. Once again, the same safety principles to be followed. These contacts should be kept clean, and there should not be any dust or any moisture or even an oil layer or grime layer or whatever you call it. It should be kept clean as much as possible so that the battery doesn't give you any problems. Do remember that when you are using the handy, it tends to get a bit hot because energy is being released from the battery into your transreceiver. So that just about covers the battery section. So quickly coming to the antenna part. Now remember this, that the walkie-talkie is essentially a device which transmits and receives electromagnetic waves, and that happens through the antenna. So essentially what you're doing is energy is being dissipated through the antenna. Now the basic rules state that you should not be operating the unit or device in an area where you find there are flammable atmosphere, or there's a combustible atmosphere which could lead to an explosion or a fire, that kind of thing. The energy dissipation may not seem much, especially if you are operating at very low wattages like 1 watt if you're on a QRP, but nevertheless it's a good idea to stay safe. The same rule also applies to batteries, especially when you're charging them. Make sure that the place where you have kept the charger is not in an area which is exposed to fumes or vapor of any kind, which can lead to such situations. All right. So that just about covers some of the things which I wanted to tell you regarding the safety aspects of using a walkie-talkie, especially with the battery and the antenna. Over a period of time, you find that these things come naturally to you. All the safety related information which is there in the booklet is already imprinted on your mind whenever you're using a walkie-talkie. Also note that all the precautions that you normally would follow while using a mobile phone would also apply to a unit like the walkie-talkie. Not keeping it close to your heart and stuff like that. It's just playing safe. So that's about it as far as safety aspects are concerned. In the next video, we will take a look at the various features of this handy, the Baofeng UV-5R. This is Victor Uniform 2 Alpha India Victor signing off.